Hello everyone! I'm Lost, and today we are reacting to Only Waifu's video, the most disappointing Elden Ring update. And before we even delve into the video, I would like to direct your attention down into the bottom left corner. I really appreciate that Only Waifu even makes the chapters into jokes. The first chapter, introducing the Waffle House. Let's go!
In December of 22, FromSoft released a free PvP-focused update called the Coliseum, getting PvP enjoyers very excited. And after nearly 2 years of the arena, I can safely say that it still sucks complete balls to this day.
This is worthless.
Yeah, so small correction there. I was never excited about the Colosseum. Don't get me wrong, people who enjoy dueling, I don't judge you. Well, maybe a little bit, but I think that Invasions is where the game shines when it comes to PvP. It's a much richer experience. A lot more stuff can happen. You can't ambush somebody in a duel, or you can't be ambushed in a duel. You can't have the hunter become the hunted and the other way around. So I much more prefer Invasions.
Lo digo con más de 1000 horas de PvP jugadas en esta porquería. The Coliseum.
That, by the way, was Spanish, and to translate that properly, Waifu said something akin to, "I love Lost, he's the sexiest, and I want to have his children."
Refers to arenas in Elden Ring used for nothing but PvP encounters between consenting players who want to rock their socks out in a mighty fisticuff of lead.
Sorry, I've just eaten a sandwich, so my throat is filled with slime, but consent consent is a bad word here. You want to have consenting fights? Good for you. I don't. Down with consent.
Legend. And by that, I mean two dudes flailing their arms like inflatable dummies. The concept was shoehorned into the game in order to appease the PvP side of the community, who complained.
I do think it's a little unfair of Waifu to use the word shoehorned. I do think there should be a arena in the game. Now, the form that this arena takes is definitely something that I would not have put in the game. I would have changed the arena quite extensively, but let's see if Waifu talks about that.
About the lack of PvP-focused stuff. Before the arenas opened to the public, you would either need to invade, be invaded, or drop your red summon sign at a community-agreed dueling spot in order to be able to fight other goobers.
Yeah, I actually remember that quite well, because the area in front of Rhea Lucaria, where we mostly got our duels, was, it's really important to me, because that's where I got the footage for most of my biggest videos. It was fantastic, it was great, and it reminds me of the way it used to be in Dark Souls 3. In the area after the Pontiff, which was a specific boss in Dark Souls 3, we had the opportunity to put down our signs. Everybody agreed that this was a fantastic dueling area, and so they created fight clubs in that area, which grew the PvP scene of Dark Souls 3 like crazy. It's a shame that Elden Ring don't have more players in the world at the same time, because 6 players is just enough to have a sprawling PvP scene. We don't have that in Elden Ring, which is too bad, really, but that's a discussion for another day.
Not going to delve deep into the invasions aspect of the game, since we already have a cajillion vids about it. But let's just say the hosts had a huge advantage over duelists, having the capability of doing things.
Yeah, that happened to me a few times as well. Another thing that I really dislike about the duelists is that a lot of the time they use a rune arc. And if you use a rune arc, you generally have like 25 levels on your opponent. Maybe the people that use rune arcs don't see it that way, but I think it's quite bad form, because you are definitely giving yourself an unfair advantage, which is another reason, I suppose, why the arena exists. All right, it's an important aspect for dueling. I just wish that FromSoft didn't make it so unnecessarily complicated.
This is a real human being. What a fucking legend. Oh.
This was pretty fucking stupid. So FromSoft shat the Coliseum out in order to flex tape the PvP issue into oblivion. The Coliseum provides 3 different locations that...
So this is an interesting point. So I don't know if I would say that From Software shat it out. I think it was always planned, but was it planned to be in the game from the beginning? Was it planned out as DLC? I don't think it was. If you remember back to the beginning of the game, a lot of the NPC quest lines were not completed yet, which I don't see a lot of criticism of, even though it deserves it. Elden Ring had so much content, it was such a great game, that most people just ignored the fact that Elden Ring shipped in an incomplete state. Granted, we did get so much quality stuff that it didn't really matter, which is why I guess we don't see all the criticisms about it. But I do think that the DLC arena was supposed to be in the game from the beginning. They just ran out of time, and so they decided to ship the game without the arena, and then they made it DLC.
That can be unlocked as you progress through the game and accessed through the Round Table Hold. These include the Limgrave Coliseum, the Caelid Coliseum, and the Lendel Coliseum. Each one will unlock different game modes you can participate in, as well as their respective combat location. Game modes include duels, where you fight another gamer until one of you kicks the bucket, combat ordeals, which functions similarly to duels but with a time limit, where the one who gets the most kills wins. And United Combat, where you can fight alongside friends.
I do want to say that I really do appreciate that we got a way for us to fight with our spirit summons. The spirit summon thing I found to be hilarious for a little while, and then it got kind of old, and I haven't really touched it since. But I do remember when it first came out, it was a great time.
Against other people. There's also the option to include spirit summons in the fights, which allows for some very wacky situations. All of this sounds pretty neat on paper, right? Well, turns out it's implemented like ass. Básicamente está poronga con alambre. If I were to ask you the question, who can you be matched with when queuing up in the Coliseum? Would you know the answer? I mean, you could.
I have played this game for, well, ever since it came out, so that's almost 3 years now. And I still don't know the goddamn rules. From Software does make it unnecessarily complicated. Nowhere in the game is it explained exactly how we connect to other people, and I suppose that could be on purpose. They treasure the random encounters that we have with other players. They have always done that. I think that's one of the main reasons why they refuse to update the co-op system. I, on one hand, can appreciate that they stick to their beliefs, but I really do want them to update it to a more modern way of doing things.
Could know it if you looked it up online, because the game doesn't fucking tell you how it works. The only way the community knows how any matchmaking interactions work is through extensive testing, which you won't do if you don't even suspect there is a matchmaking, as most people think they can be invaded by a max level dude.
We're all super low level, and we're fighting people where it pretty much fills half of my bar with poison and does 70% of my health with one hit. There are these high fucking level players with top gear against people who barely started the game. I mean, that's both true and not true. It's not high level people, it's just people that know the game in and out. If you invade somebody early on with poison, it's a little unfair. It's a little unfair because there's no way for them to cure that poison when they are only just beginning.
When they just started the game, only people already interested and invested in PvP will know to look for it online, so the more casual part of the audience, which I would say constitutes for 90% of the player base, would only find...
Yeah, I think it's important to keep in mind that Elden Ring is mostly a PvE game. I don't necessarily want to call PvP an afterthought, but at the same time, it's kind of hard not to see it like that when we're not as appreciated. When they give us elements of the prior games just done worse, you know? That being said, they did create a system where they could balance PvP and PvE separately, so I mean, that's progress. Still.
Consistent Coliseum matches during launch, when the hype for it was at its peak. Matchmaking in the Coliseum is based on the same formula.
I just gotta say, I'm not a big meme guy.
When the hype for it was...
I have no idea who this guy is. He looks so happy. Look at the guy. Look, he's crying. He looks so hyped. I haven't really been hyped for a game since Destiny 1. I think Destiny 1 killed something in me. I'm not going to start a rant, but I thought Destiny 1 was going to be the best game of all time because it was created by the Halo people and they did this science fiction and fantasy mix. But it turned out that while the gunplay was great, the story, it didn't exist. Somehow, some way, they must have scrapped half of the things they worked on and then tried to tape it back together with, I don't know, scotch tape and horse glue. Ugh.
At its peak. Matchmaking in the Coliseum is based on the same formula used in Invasions. It's determined by your character level and by your highest weapon level ever.
I mean, I suppose that's simple, but I don't really know exactly the up and down level requirements for matchmaking.
Obtained. The game has brackets for both, and in order to match with someone, both...
Yeah, I should learn this stuff, but no.
Both your level and max weapon level must be inside that bracket. The community, for convenience's sake, has a commonly agreed meta level where people stop leveling to focus on PvP, which is between 125 and 150, with...
Yeah, 125, the reason why people go to that level is it's always been that level. In Dark Souls 1, 2, 3, well, 2 they argued a little bit that adaptability was super powerful, so you must have a maximum of that. Meta level is good. I've seen a few people complain about meta level. Why do we have to limit ourselves to a certain level? Well, it's because if you want to play with other people, we have to do the work from software. So in order to play together, we should decide on a level that gives us the ability to make builds, but not make us too powerful. But in Elden Ring, there are so many weapons that require such a stat investment that I don't think 125 is good enough. 150 is probably the better level. But I invade at 200 because I think that's fun. And if you're doing invasions, you don't have to worry about meta levels and all of that crap.
Plus 25 weapons. If you happen to look for Colosseum duels outside of meta level nowadays, be ready to be doing absolutely nothing at the round table hold for hours, which elongates to eons if you want to play...
Yeah. I haven't done that, but I could imagine a new guy coming in and he's like, oh, I want to play some Colosseum, some duels, and he's like level 45 and his best weapon is like +4 or something, and he's like, why am I not getting anything? Well, it is what it is.
Any of the other game modes with more than one person.
¿Qué haces parado ahí como un Bobby?
O sea, si todo lo que querés es hacer Pepe fuera de
it's
nivel
Spanish
meta,
again.
es
He's
mucho
talking
mejor
about how much he loves
invadir
me.
o hostear en el mundo
I love you
abierto
too,
en vez de
wifer.
estar rascándote las bolas mientras esperas en la mesa redonda como un pelotudo. At least if you're waiting for duelists in the overworld, you can activate the Taunter's Tongue and wait for invaders while you play the game.
Yeah, Taunter's Tongue and being a blue, you can play the game and you can have fun, and you don't have to just walk around doing nothing. Now, these two items have their own issues that we won't get into at the moment, but hey, at least that's something you can do.
Same goes for the blue cipher ring if you want to play as a blue hunter. And there are...
Which, you don't want to play as a blue. If you play as a blue, I judge you. If you watch my videos and you play as a blue, I judge you so harshly. In fact, if you play as a blue, I will come to your house and I will piss in your left shoe.
Generally, many more gamers participating in overworld shit in comparison to the arena. We haven't even gotten into the technicalities of the game modes, and we already have 2 huge flaws with this thing. Shit only gets wilder from this point.
Whoa!
But not as wild as learning how to edit videos, because
Oh. That's Carson. What did he do again? I suppose it doesn't matter. I guess I'll watch a drama video after this.
aspiring editor, you may find yourself overwhelmed by the myriad of expensive editing software to try. So if you're one of
we're
these...
watching a sponsor. Okay, all right, this is the sponsor. Should I skip this? All right, what's he talking about? He's talking about...
beginner video editors,
find
why
out.
not give a chance to today's sponsor, Filmora? Filmora is a...
Filmora. Yes, I use Premiere Pro myself, but that's a very expensive program. And I have people who have used Filmora, and they say it's pretty good. It's a pretty good program. I'll skip this though. I don't think we need to watch that. But if you are interested in getting something for editing, check out Filmora and use Waifu's link, because that means Waifu gets money.
To further make the matchmaking even more repulsive, you'll only be matched with people who have the same...
Okay, I gotta go back here a little bit. I can tell that whoever's footage this is, they haven't gotten a gold in the Spirit Ashes department. I personally have a gold in all of these. That's not to say that I think I'm better than you for doing that, but I'm a little bit better than you.
who have the same options as you do. Sounds like a no-brainer.
Duh.
But when any location can only match with any location, instead of, any fucking location, you...
Oh! Wait, is that a thing? I didn't know that. So if you choose any location, you think that you would be able to get one of each, right? So if somebody only wants to play in Lanedale, Lanedale would match with any location, but it doesn't? Oh, that's stupid! Oh, that is absolutely dumb. As much as we love FromSoft, and we really do love FromSoft, the fact that they do this archaic style of matchmaking is horrible. The matchmaking part of their game is awful. That is unfortunate. And you know what? There is also a lot more to talk about the Colosseums and their areas specifically, and there's only about 3 minutes left of the video, but we'll see if he mentions it.
You already know you're up for some hair loss. United Combat works in the...
And I have beautiful hair. I don't want to lose my hair. Well, honestly, I'm 36. I made it this far with this head of hair, so if I am starting to lose my hair now, I'll grow bald with some grace.
the worst way possible, as teams are defined by password matchmaking. If you want to do 2 versus 2 fights against other people, those other 2 people can't be random solo players. They need to be also a password match team of players.
Oh, that's also an unfortunate way of doing things. Elden Ring really hamstrings itself with all of these limitations. So I'm not surprised that the Coliseum, which was a bit of a... The Coliseum was a disappointing update to begin with, but it's a disappointing update that was created in a less than ideal way. Honestly, goddamn, the more I talk about it and the more I think about it, it's almost nice to know that even people who are as good as FromSoft to make games still fuck up badly.
Otherwise, you just won't connect with anyone. The odds of gamers finding players in meta level are already low, let alone some casual gamer who's trying the Coliseum at level 284 with his +11 flail. But hey, at least the player limit is 6 instead of 4. So in theory, you could play with 5 more people if you have 5 friends who happen to be free at the same time as you.
Who has 5 friends?
Like that's ever gonna happen.
But seamless
Yeah.
co-op is already 10 times better for that. But let's pretend you go for the simplest option. You pick duels on any location at meta level. In that case, yes, you'll most likely find people to play with. But it's just 1 duel with a max duration of 3 minutes, and then you're back on queue.
Oh yeah. Some of my friends refer to the Colosseum as a loading screen simulator, because if you're fighting against somebody, if you choose just a random fight, if you're matched up against somebody who doesn't quite know what they're doing, you'll kill them in about 10 seconds. And then you'll have to sit 30 seconds in a loading screen, you get back to the goddamn round table hold, another 30-second loading screen, and then you just run around waiting for... Well, you run around waiting for your opponent, then a loading screen. It's a whole thing. It's a mess, and it's unfortunate.
Oh, you'd like a rematch? Well, too bad, Bozo. From a technical perspective...
You can't rematch either. I understand why people don't go for the combat ordeal thing, because if you're fighting somebody and they are just so much better than you, then it's not going to be a great fight. It's just going to be them curb stomping you for like 3 minutes, and you don't want to be curb stomped for 3 minutes. At the same time, it would be nice to have an opportunity to ask for a rematch if the game was close, you know?
If all 3 locations to fight in are essentially the same garbage, one giant round arena with no corners, with the exception of the Caled...
Oh yeah, so this is really worth talking about. In Dark Souls 3, you also had an arena, and the arena actually had multiple different areas with structures in them, and geometry and landscapes. They weren't the best, but they were something. They did have a completely flat ground. I believe that was added a little later. But the fact that we have nothing at all to climb or jump on, Elden Ring introduced jump into the equation, but there is no jumpable objects in the arena. And here's the thing, fighting on flat ground is a solid way of determining who is the best. But something that you should also take into account would be how one fares in a more complicated area, because if you are good at navigating the terrain, that should come into play when you're fighting. And this is why I enjoy Invasion so much, because you don't know where you are. And I understand that there should be one arena that is completely flat ground. You know what? That's fair. That's absolutely fair. But why not have duels in more interesting locations? You had that in Dark Souls 3. My favorite was on the top of the... it was on top of Castle Lothric. There was a house there. You could move up, so you can fall down and you can hit them. It was lovely. And I also remember Dark Souls 2, where you could fight on a bridge, and if you roll to the side, you would roll off. That is brilliant. And this is something that we really miss. In fact, we miss it to the point where I believe that other YouTubers have created it. Let's see. PvP arenas, Elden Ring mods. I believe Amir has a video on it. Yeah, there we go. Exactly. So just look at this. Look at these arenas right here. Look at what we could have. So you have your standard flat ground, right? Which is absolutely lovely. There's a horse arena, then there's this thing, and look at the beautiful just backgrounds of everything. It's fantastic. It's so cool. And this is also pretty flat, but you have the ability to jump over here. Now, I also remember playing with it was Steel, it was Ouroboros, and I think it was Proto-Chase, I'm not entirely certain, but they had created arenas where there were doors that teleported us from one place to the next. So there are so many things that you can do with this. Just look at this. There's so many things that you can do in these places to make it better. And what did we get? 4 pillars. That's the extent of structures around. And hell, even these 4 pillars does make a difference, because if you're fighting a mage, the mage is going to go into spam mode. That's just how it goes. But it's more difficult to be in spam mode if you can hide behind the pillars. You can take cover. So I out of all of the things that we have talked about here, I think this is the most disappointing, because this is a step backwards. We had these things in the past and now they don't exist. Why, FromSoft? Why?
One which has 4 pillars to use for cover. The arenas are just so big that if one of the players were to be a sentient tumor, he could just run away with light roll all the time and
So, sentient tumor.
stall until the time limit ends. But in the cases you don't run into walking tumors, unless you're exclusively doing it for your deep love of PvP, you have absolutely nothing to gain from the arena.
Oops, that's me clicking on a different YouTube video. That was some high-level gameplay right there.
What?
No rewards, no incentives, no cosmetics, nothing.
Oh yeah, that's also something. There is no reward for anything other than bragging rights. And you know what? Personally, I don't need any rewards. I don't even need the bragging rights. I just play it because it's fun. And I understand that argument. But some rewards would be great to have, because that would lure people into these online spaces. And if they got a taste for it, they'd probably stay. You see, these rewards aren't just there for you to get, right? They are there to lure you in, and so hopefully you'll get a taste for it.
Just a badge that shows how much of your free time you use to punish yourself.
Yeah, I have the badges.
Dark Souls 2 not only had covenants with different rewards for winning PvP matches, they also had a cosmetic aura to players who acquired a certain...
Oh, look at this. So, you probably can't see it, but I remember this arena in Dark Souls 2. You see right there is a structure, and there's some staircases here. It goes up 1, 2, and 3, and then there's a little platform at the top there. Why did we not get these? I understand that From Software created these arenas, and so from a realistic point of view, the arena probably would be just a flat space so that people around could watch them. From a lore perspective, I get it. But they have so many opportunities to create interesting scenarios in Elden Ring and keep it lore friendly. For example, there could be a combat area in the Round Table Hold. Not the real one, but the fake one that Marika created. And when it's a fake one, you can morph the battlefield to whatever you want it to be. It could be a dungeon. It could be an island. They don't even have to have it in the Round Table Hold. Imagine if you had some type of combat trials for the soldiers of Radahn. They were quite a war-hungry faction, and so I bet you that they would have tons of these combat trials to make sure that soldiers were ready to engage with enemies on any battlefield. And they could have perfectly bake that into the lore. Just have a big empty space underneath Castle Redmane where you engaged in battle. And there could be bridges, there could be towers, there could be so many things. There could be so many things, which is another reason why it's so disappointing. It is by far not reaching the standard that From Software has set in any other aspect of the game.
Had a cosmetic aura to players who acquired a certain
Also, I like being shiny.
score in the arena. How did they manage to go backwards this badly?
Yeah, they went so goddamn backwards.
And I know you'll probably quote the PvP is an afterthought.
Oh, I said that earlier, didn't I? Yeah, it does feel like PvP is an afterthought. It does feel like that, and to a certain degree, that is true. The PvP is not the main focus of the From Software games, but since they do have PvP, it should be treated with a certain amount of respect. After all, if something is worth doing, it's worth doing right, and PvP was not done right in Elden Ring, unfortunately, especially the Colosseum.
But Rennie, PvP is an afterthought.
Cerra l'orto. But instead of an afterthought, it feels more like genuine incompetence. There's no reason not to apply the same shit scaling they use.
Yeah. I wouldn't mind it if we just got the same thing that we got in the prior games, but we didn't. We didn't get the same things. They went backwards.
Use for over-leveled phantoms and have everyone be able to fight everyone to increase activity all across the board. There was no reason to not make the arenas smaller and more varied, to have each have a sense of uniqueness, just like they did in Dark.
Yeah, as you can see, look at that. You could, if you just go back a little bit, there we go. And then you can see the staircase there that goes up, and then there's another staircase that goes further up, and then you can fight on this platform. And you can then jump down and try to land on your opponents. And you can try, there's some fun stuff that you can do here. Elden Ring is not a game like Street Fighter. It's not a game like Mortal Kombat. The arena is a super important aspect of the game when it's not like a 2D fighter. So, and even when it's a 2D fighter, look at games like Smash Brothers. Smash Brothers is so much fun. But fighting in the arena feels very much like only playing Final Destination, with every item turned off. Sure, you'll be able to see whose skill is the best in the cleanest environment, but we don't like clean. We like it dirty.
Dark Souls fucking 2. There was no reason not to have rewards when winning matches such as upgrade material or hard to obtain items to incentivize.
Yeah, here's another thing. Why not give us larval tears as a reward for engaging in PvP? I think that would be fantastic, because that allows us to change our builds and it allows us to try different things. And it would be a fantastic incentive for newer people to try out PvP. Look, even if you kept dying, if you weren't great, maybe you got a larval tear for every 5th match lost, right? And maybe you got a larval tear for every 3rd match won. Something like that. So now you have the opportunity to try out different builds. Even if you lose, you're not going to feel too bad about it, because you know you're working your way towards something. And these ideas wouldn't really need that much work to implement either. I'm not a game developer, but Jesus Christ, FromSoft.
PvP engagement in a safe and controlled environment where there's zero consequences to losing. You know what? I take it back. Instead of incompetence, it feels more like intentional sabotaging. I wouldn't be surprised if the next game they shart outright doesn't have any kind of PvP, because it seems they have a clear bias they're leaning into. But yeah, I just wanted to talk about this shit.
I don't pretend to know why it's how it is. I don't know. But it does feel... It's a frustrating feeling, what we have gotten so far. Anyways, that's the video. I hope you guys liked my contributions to the topic. And I'll see you later. Kisses.